you all the best. I wish you don't do like I do, and never fall in love with someone like you. Because if you did,
6.
just like I did, probably walk around the block like a little kid. Kids don't know, they can only guess how hard it is to wish you happiness.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Tuesday.
Are we good?
Hag Sameach Hanukkah. I am turning some people's videos off just for the candle lighting so we can highlight our adult B'nai Mitzvah class and their families. We welcome you. And we're so excited that Rabbi Gellman's joining us tonight to teach us. We'd love to learn from him. And right now I'm going to turn things over to Rabbi Wiesenberg and Cantor Applebaum, who are at the temple in the synagogue
The candles are skinnier on
in
the
their
bottom.
great
Heavier, better.
outfits. Rabbi Wiesenberg.
Okay. So, Chag Urim Sameach, happy Hanukkah to everybody. My teaching tonight is really just about a greeting that I think we've been saying a lot to each other, that this is a Hanukkah like any other. And my question or my teaching tonight basically is it really a Hanukkah unlike any other? I would argue that it actually isn't so different. In all of our years on this planet, the Jewish people have always found a way through all of our trials, our tribulations, every generation, something has come up that has challenged our hope, has challenged our light, our ability to spread light, and has challenged our ability to celebrate the Festival of Light. We are told some really amazing stories from survivors that whether they were in the camps or in the ghettos, they found a way to celebrate this holiday. We've heard immigrant stories and refugees stories that no matter how they got here, they found a way to celebrate the Festival of Light, the Festival of Hope. And so I would say that when we talk about this holiday season, about the Hanukkah of 2020, instead of saying that it was a Hanukkah unlike any other, that instead we focus on the hope that we were able to spread, the miracle of technology that allows us to be together while safely apart, and really focusing on what connects us to our family, to our ancestors in every age, really bringing forth this hope and this light, no matter what sort of things get thrown in our way. So I wish you all a Chag Urim Sameach, a festival of light that is happy and safe and healthy, and really not that different from what our parents, our grandparents, and our ancestors might have gone through. I'm now going to give you a lovely tour of our sanctuary while I put my mask back on. And we are going to light some candles, so get those candles ready. And if you are a Hebrew school student and you made a beautiful menorah in school today, now is the time to get it out. All right, Cantor, we're going to light some candles.
Awesome.
Can you lead us in our blessings, please?
I don't know. That's questionable this year.
Questionable.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asa nisim la'avoteinu bayamim ha'im b'zman hazeh. Ooh, oh well. Tonight we light the Hanukkah candles from left to right, left to right. Favorite time of year, burning bright. From the east to the west, Jesus wants you like the rest. All around the world, people gather around His gate. A miracle happened, so we light a candle. We light the Hanukkah candles from left to right. We light the Hanukkah candles from left to right. Tonight we light the Hanukkah candles from left to right. Happy Hanukkah, everybody.
Happy Hanukkah,
Happy
everybody.
Hanukkah. And I want to invite the adult B'nai Mitzvah class first to unmute, say hello, everybody, and then say hello so we get a little glimpse of you in case people didn't see you.
Everybody.
Lansky's and Turners and Simons and Weissmans and Pels. Germans were here last night. So thank you guys. So now we're going to unspotlight you and we're going to go to Rabbi Gellman, who's going to turn his camera on and we're going to spotlight him. There you go. I'm going to replace spotlight with you and invite everybody to turn their cameras on. It's more fun to teach when you have people who you can see. So Rabbi, are we getting a nice, everybody turning their cameras on? And right now we'll have everybody muted except for Rabbi G.
Hello, everyone. Hanukkah Sameach. Yeah.
Hanukkah Sameach.
Hanukkah Sameach.
Hanukkah Sameach, Rabbi Gellman. Oh, God, it's good to see you all. It's good to see you all. Let me see. Gallery. There we go. Now I get to see you all. That's wonderful. So tonight, we're going to talk about Hanukkah gifts and spiritually acceptable Hanukkah gifts. And I hope you're interested in that because the studies, the surveys show that of all the things that Jewish people do, the three most popular things that Jewish people do is first, complain. That's the second thing after complaining is most Jewish people, of all the things that we're required to do as Jews, the three biggest things, whether we like it or not, whether they're the most important things or not, are the Passover Seder, Hanukkah gifts, and going to synagogue for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur for Yontif. Of those three, the most popular of the three is giving Hanukkah gifts. Now, this is something that we have to think about. First of all, Hanukkah is not a major holiday. It's a big holiday for children. It's a big holiday for people who sell things. But it's not a big holiday in the scope of the Jewish calendar and the year. The proof of that is the book of Maccabees, which is the story of Hanukkah, isn't even in the Hebrew Bible, in the Tanakh. It's not even included. It's part of a group of books, Fourth Esdras and others, that were created between the end of the Hebrew Bible and the beginning of the Christian Bible, the New Testament. And it's called the Apocrypha and Pseudepigrapha. And that's where it's located. And more than that, in the first stories of Hanukkah, there isn't even the story of the oil lasting 8 days. That happened because the rabbis added that in the Mishnah. So compared to the 3 big biblical holidays, which were Pesach, Sukkot, and Shavuos, because those were the 3 holidays where you were required to make a pilgrimage, an aliyah, for the Chagim, which in Arabic was translated as the Hajj, and that's what Muslims have when they go to Mecca. It's called the Hajj. We have the same thing when you go to Jerusalem, except it's called a Hag, but it's the same word. It means joy. So the big holidays were Pesach, Sukkot, and Shavuos, and after the temple was destroyed by the Romans in the year 70 of the Common Era, and when we entered the diaspora, the 3 pilgrim festivals were no longer major because we couldn't go to Jerusalem anymore, because we didn't have control over Jerusalem. So the rabbis put even greater emphasis on Rosh Hashanah, which is in the Torah, Yom Kippur, which is in the Torah but isn't even named as Yom Kippur, but it's there. And so those became major holidays. But Hanukkah has just remained a minor holiday. And in fact, the rabbis had trouble with Hanukkah. I have to tell you this. The ancient rabbis who created Judaism as we know it, you understand that Judaism in the Bible involved killing animals and burning them up as sacrifices, which is pretty yucky. And I'm glad that Judaism isn't like that, because I love animals and I couldn't kill a single animal, much less burn one up. But that's what Judaism was. Also, Judaism was run by people who were called the Kohanim and Leviim, the priests, Jewish priests. And in order to be a priest, a Kohen or a Levi, you had to inherit the title from your father. So you couldn't be a priest unless you inherited the title. So Judaism in the Bible involved burning up animals at the direction of people who inherited their job. Judaism after the Bible involved prayers led by people who were the smartest people in the community. That's still true. And they were called rabbis. There were 2 gradations of rabbis. The Tanaim, those were the rabbis up to the year 200, who wrote the Mishnah and the first authentic works of rabbinic Judaism. The Midrash, which you know how much I love, the Midrash, which are stories about stories in the Torah. They wrote those too.
Sure, try first.
Hello? And the Amoraim, who came after that time, who were the later rabbis. The rabbis, let's just say this simply, they hated Hanukkah. And they hated it so deeply that when the Shabbos for Hanukkah comes along, 8 days, there's always a Shabbos in there. And there's always a Torah reading. And there was a special Haftorah not written, but included for Hanukkah. And that Haftorah is from Zechariah, the prophet Zechariah of Zechariah. And it has as its famous verse, Lo b'chayil, lo b'choach, ki'im baruchi. Not by power and not by might, but by my spirit will you prevail. Now, of course, the Maccabees prevailed by power and might. And now that's right. We have it in that song. Lo b'chayil, lo b'choach, and ki'im baruchi. And so they included that in Hanukkah to tell people, look, what the Maccabees did is not something we were in favor of, because it was violent and frankly because it was also anti-Greek. The rabbis were not anti-Greek. They loved Greek philosophy and they learned from Greek philosophy. You know, we have 13 ways of interpreting the Torah, and we learned that from Roman law and Greek law. We have the idea of guf and neshama, body and soul. We have a soul and a body, and when we die, our soul, our neshama, goes to God. That comes from the Greek idea of matter and form. So the rabbis learned a lot from Greek philosophy, and they learned from the very best. In the year 133, when Alexander the Great conquered most of the world up to India, before he was 30, Alexander the Great came through Judea at the time, through Israel, in his conquest, and he had with him his tutor, because back then he was the head of everything. And so he had his own teachers. And his main teacher was Aristotle, who was the greatest philosopher who ever lived. And what Aristotle taught these Jewish leaders and thinkers whom he met at the time, and these thinkers and leaders were called the Perushim, or Pharisees. And later they called each other rabbi. That's the birth of rabbis. And so he taught them. And we learned all of these ideas that entered Judaism from the Greeks. And the Maccabees hated the Greeks. So if you ask me, is Hanukkah my favorite Jewish holiday, I think you know the answer. However, don't be upset. Tonight's conversation is about giving presents. Now you might think, well, you know, Rabbi Gellman is a Grinch, and he probably he's not even in favor of giving gifts. But actually I am, and I believe in giving presents. And I believe in giving presents to children. And I want to talk to the kids who are here and their parents about spiritually acceptable giving. Because there is a belief most people have, which is not true. And that belief is that it's easier to give than to receive. The truth is, it's harder to give. It's very hard to give. First of all, it's hard to give because some people are selfish. Let's just say it simply. Some people are selfish and they don't want to give to anybody else. They don't give to anybody ever. They aren't particularly generous people. And so they certainly don't want to give to anybody. Even their own kids, they give, but they're not thrilled about it. And sometimes another obstacle to giving is people cover it with a kind of a fancy ideology. They say, oh, you know, Hanukkah is so materialistic. And that's terrible. It's sort of just like Christmas. It's what we Jews do. It's a Jewish Christmas. And it's all about giving gifts and money and giving. and buying and giving and buying. And so they say that's terrible because materialism is terrible. And those are some of the reasons why people are stingy and don't like to give gifts. But I love to give gifts, and I want to talk to you about why. Everything you have in your life, there's only two choices about what you have in your life. Two choices. One is you own everything you have. You own it. It's yours. It's your private stuff. And you can do whatever you want with it. That's what most people think. But that's not the Jewish view of it. Our view is that everything, the second view, is that everything in your life is not yours. Everything in your life is a gift that has been given to you by God. You worked for it, yes, that's true, but it's still a gift given to you by God. And so that gift should be shared with other people. It's that simple. It's a gift which you are given just long enough in your life to give it away to other people. And I believe that. The other thing is, I like giving gifts because they're a sign that we love people. They're a token of love. Now, some people get this confused and they think, well, if I get a good gift, that means I'm really loved. If I get a bad gift, that means I'm not that loved. That's that. You see that in the Christmas with Santa and the lump of coal. If you were a very good child, you get a present. If not, you get a lump of coal. And I think that whole idea that gifts are a sign of love, a reward for love is wrong. Gifts are not a sign of love. Gifts are a token, which means you love someone and so you want to give them a gift that shows that you love them. It's not that they earned the gift, because if you earn something, it's not a gift. It's called wages. That's your salary. If you give someone a gift, it means you're saying, I love you. Now, let's talk about giving gifts and how hard it is. One of the things I talked to with the kids in the synagogue for over 30 years was that they should give their own Hanukkah gifts to their parents and their family, their brothers and sisters, and that they should pick out their own gifts. Now, in a lot of families, kids get gifts for Hanukkah. I am very, very saddened to realize and to learn over the years that in many families, children do not give gifts to their parents or their siblings or anyone. They just get gifts. This is turning gift giving upside down. It's really wrong. Because what it does is it trains children to think that gifts are things that they get, but they're not things that they need to give. And the truth is that gift giving, as I said, is extremely difficult. Let me tell you some of the ways it's difficult because you know them. First of all, a good gift connects to what the person loves. So in order for you to give someone a good gift, you have to know what they love. But to know what they love means you have to know them. And a lot of kids, because some of their grandparents live in Florida, and some of them don't live nearby, and some of them, you know, they don't know them that well. So when they get, if they were to get a present for their grandparents, some of them don't even know what their grandparents love, what they want, not what they want as a gift, but what they're interested in. Because a gift should connect to what the person is interested in. For example, let me just give you a little example. I love to golf. I love golfing. And every golfer, in order to play the game, you need little white balls. Now they're colored. Some of them are colored. And every golfer has a brand of golf balls that he or she likes to play with. They like that ball. The truth is, most people are really crappy golfers like me. And no matter what ball they played, it wouldn't matter. They're still going to be bad golfers. But there's a certain brand that I like. It's the Bridgestone E12 Soft. I don't know why they don't have better names for golf balls. They should call it the Bridgestone Zinger or the Bridgestone Va-Va-Voom, something like that. But so that's the ball I like. So if someone was going to give me a present from the family, it would be nice to get a dozen golf balls. They sell them in boxes of a dozen. But it would also be nice if the ball I got was the one I actually play with. So you see what I mean? In order to give a gift, you have to know somebody. You have to know about them. You have to take time to think about what's a good present. Now, I know you kids who are listening, you may be saying, Rabbi, in case you've forgotten, we're kids, we don't have a job, we don't have any money. How are we supposed to give gifts if we don't have money? Well, I have a couple of things to say about that. The first is you don't need money to give a gift. My favorite gift, which we did at the synagogue for many years with lots of children, and they loved this, parents and others loved this gift, was the Hanukkah coupon book, which I invented. It's called the Hanukkah coupon book because it's a Hanukkah gift and it's a coupon book. It's not a very imaginative title. I probably should have called it the Hanukkah E12 Soft. Maybe that would have been right. Anyway, the Hanukkah coupon book is a book made by the kids in Temple Beth Torah Religious School, where they would decorate a little piece of paper that said, this coupon is good for cleaning up my room immediately with no questions asked. Just present the coupon and I will clean up my room immediately with no questions asked. That was on that coupon. Or this coupon is good for a hug and a kiss right now. Or this coupon is, I will walk the dog even when it's not my turn to walk the dog, which is really a good gift to give, even if you don't have a dog. It's a little confusing to people. What dog? I didn't know we had a dog. Anyway, coupons like that. And then they would decorate the coupons and tie them up together or staple them together. And they would give the coupon book to their mom or dad or grandpa or grandma. And that was their gift. And it didn't cost any money. And it was a spiritually acceptable Hanukkah gift. You understand what I'm saying? A kid can give this gift, even if they don't have any money. Make a coupon book. Another thing is you can get some money if you ask your parents and say, could I have some money? They'll say, what? And they'll say, you say to your parents, I want some money because I want you to take me to the store, or I want to go online, which is probably safer nowadays. And I want to buy presents for you and mom and grandpa and grandma and my brothers and sisters. I want to buy presents for them and pick them out. And I want them to be my presents to them. It's your money, but it's still my present to them because I'm picking it out. And parents, if your kids are little and you don't want to trust them with clicking on Amazon, because in the end you may end up owning a vacation home. The truth of the matter is you can be with them and work with them and help them. But the point is, children need to be taught how to give gifts. It's every skill we have. You have to be taught to pray. You can't just pray. You can pray, of course, in your own heart. You don't need to be taught that. But to pray the Jewish prayers, to say the blessings before the Torah, after the Torah, you need to be taught. To read Hebrew, you need to be taught. Everything that's important, you need to be taught. We have to teach children how to give. And if they give a bad gift to someone, it's important for parents to talk to their children and figure out why it was a bad gift, so that their child can learn, oh yeah, I gave a gift that had nothing to do with the person's interests. And then they learn and they get better. The best gift giver I know, the two best givers, are my wife Betty and my daughter Mara. They are extraordinarily brilliant gift givers. They are creative. They always think of the right thing to give. They're just really good at it. I'm good at explaining stuff, but I'm not that good at the giving the part, because I end up giving Bridgestone E12 soft golf balls to everybody. And that's not that good if you're giving a gift to a tennis player. So Betty is really great and Mara's great, and they just have a knack. I'm sure you have people in your life who are like that. So let's talk about some actual gifts that are spiritually acceptable. Let me start with something you may not think is spiritually acceptable, and that's jewelry. Jewelry. A lot of people think, oh, jewelry is just, a decoration, and it's certainly not religious or spiritual. But I'm talking about a particular kind of jewelry that I think parents at some point in their children's life, I think it should be around their bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah time, they should get some Jewish jewelry. What is a Jewish jewelry? That's right, Richard. That's a ring with a Star of David on it. That's a ring. It weighs looks like about 15 pounds, that ring. And that ring shows people that Richard Plass is Jewish. And there's another way to show people you're Jewish, and that's to wear a Star of David. It's called a Mogen David. And to pick out a beautiful gold Mogen David and have your child wear that. Boys, when I was young, I don't know how it is now. I don't know if anyone even wears jewelry anymore. Most people don't, I guess. Although I see a lot of professional athletes wearing a lot of what they call bling, which is, a lot of gold stuff. chains and things. And baseball players wear jewelry, which I just hate. There's no reason to allow baseball players to wear jewelry. The uniform is enough. I mean, it's baseball. Come on. Anyway, so when I was young, boys wear mezuzahs, you know, a little mezuzah on a necklace. And that's beautiful. And to get that and to wear that shows that you're proud to be Jewish. And that's a lovely gift. If your children do not have their own Hanukkah, giving them a Hanukkah is a wonderful gift. Because then they're lighting the candles in their own Hanukkah. There are toys that are spiritually acceptable. What are these kind of toys? Well, first of all, creative toys. All artists' supplies are spiritually acceptable. If you have a child or a niece or a nephew or someone who's interested in art, get them some paints and brushes, or, you know, you find this out by first giving them the best first gift for a budding artist as a young child is a box of Crayola crayons, the 24. 64 is overwhelming. 64 colors is crazy. It makes you nuts. Which one? Red, sort of red, sienna? No, 24 colors is just right. A box of crayons and a pad of paper. You know, they make paper in pads, not just in those paper wrap Mimeo packages. Artist supplies are good. There's certain toys that are iconic. I dug out of my library a book called Quintessence. This is a book done back in the 80s, I think, by Betty Kornfeld and Owen Edwards. It's a photo coffee table type book, 1983. And they picked out things like the Ace comb, which were, in their opinion, perfect. Things that were quintessential. That means they couldn't be improved on. Now, I'm not saying you should give people a comb or a bar of ivory soap, which is in here, or a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, or a can of Campbell's tomato soup, or a Steinway grand piano. But there's an old watch. They used to make these called the Timex Mercury 20521 watch. It's a watch that you have to wind up with a stem, and it costs about $12 when they sold it. Anyway, a thing about watches, I think we're at the end of the era of people wearing watches. Certainly for decoration or jewelry, they don't do it anymore. I have an iconic wristwatch, which I wear. I won it in a golf tournament, which was my first and only professional reward for playing golf. Now people wear those Apple watches or other smart watches, and I think they're good. I mean, they have a lot of different functions, and particularly for old people like me, they can tell your heart rate and all that stuff. But there are. I wanted to see it was snowing out. Okay, got it. There's other classic toys. Parents, you have an obligation. Let me be a little rabbi preachy here for a minute. You have an obligation. When you were a kid, I know this is hard for your kids to imagine that you were ever a kid, but when you were a kid, what were your favorite toys? You have an obligation to tell your kids what your favorite toys were. And you would be surprised, but many of those toys are still for sale. For example, the Slinky that's in the book, Quintessence. The Slinky, remember? I don't know if you've ever seen a Slinky toy. They're like a spring, and you can get it to walk downstairs, and it's just perfect. The Slinky is perfect. Doesn't cost a lot of money, but it's just a perfect toy. And I think if you, parents, grandparents, give to your grandchildren and your children toys that you just felt were perfect, like the Rubik's Cube. That's it. That's sort of a version of the Rubik's Cube. That's an advanced Rubik's Cube. The one I tried, the one I had, which was perfect, was just, it just had 4 sides. That was it. The other is the Frisbee, or a hula hoop, or the orange Spalding ball. Just a ball that you could bounce and play catch with. It was the perfect size. Back in Brooklyn, people used to play stickball with the Spaldings. And if you show your kid the toys that you loved as a kid, it humanizes you. It humanizes you. So all of those are spiritually acceptable. Food is a spiritually acceptable gift. Let's talk about food. First of all, my number one food gift, which is also included by the rabbis for Rosh Hashanah with apples, is honey. I believe honey is a beautiful gift. And the reason honey is a beautiful gift is that bees are the most important insect in the world. Without bees, there's no pollination of fruits and flowers. And without pollination of fruits, there's no fruits, there's nothing to eat, and we all die. Bees are responsible for life on Earth. And bees are endangered because of chemicals and other invasive species, wasps and other kinds of bees. And there's a hive collapse disorder that's affecting billions of bees, where whole hives die off. And beekeepers are desperately trying to keep up, to bring colonies of bees to orchards and other places where pollination is needed. I grew up in Milwaukee, and one of our family friends was a man named Wally Dienelt. And Wally owned a place called Honey Acres. He was a beekeeper. And we used to go and visit him at his place. And I used to see how he harvested the honey. And honey is just a magical ingredient. First of all, it's the only thing in your cupboard that can never go bad. It never rots. It never rots. You can have honey in your cupboard for years and it's still good. And so honey is just my favorite food gift, and it supports the bee industry, the apiarists, and I love honey as a gift. Chocolates I love to give because of 2 reasons. First, how could you not love giving chocolates? What are you? And the Hanukkah Gelt, which we have, those little foil covered chocolate coins, are in every Hanukkah celebration. And they're usually used to play dreidels. Let me take a little break here and refresh for all of you the rules for dreidels. Not all of you are clear about what the rules are for playing dreidels. First of all, you take M&Ms or the chocolate Hanukkah Geld. Everyone puts in one into the pot. Then one person spins the dreidel. If it lands on the letter Nun, nothing happens. Nun, nicht, nothing. If it lands on Gimel, Gibst, you take everything in the pot. Gimel, you take the whole pot. Hey, you take half the pot. And Shin, Stellerein, you put one into the pot. Got that? Nun, Gimel, Hey, Shin. And you play it with chocolate. But the other reason I like chocolates as gifts is that if you give real chocolates, and I'm talking about artisanal chocolates, chocolates that are made by chocolatiers, there's that wonderful place that sells ice cream and chocolates in Huntington. Kilwins. Kilwins, they are from Minnesota, and they sell the best ice cream I've ever had. And they also have great chocolates. And of course, down the street is the Chocolatier, that chocolate place on Main Street in Huntington. What I like about those places and the chocolates they sell there is that they taste like chocolate. If you buy a Mounds bar, or you buy, even a Hershey bar, or you buy anything that's a mass-produced candy bar, it tastes like wax. It doesn't taste like chocolate. So if you're giving a gift of chocolate, get real chocolate that tastes like chocolate. And of course, the third item in my food list of spiritually acceptable gifts is anything that you bake yourself. Home-baked goods. I've been giving away for this Hanukkah lots of banana muffins. I make banana bread and I make it into muffins, and I've been giving that away to workers, the people who pick up the trash, and to people who take care of lawns, and just say, it's a hot day and I'd like you to have a snack for Hanukkah. But home-baked goods are good for two reasons. One, they show that you put some effort into it. Secondly, they teach children how to bake. And children are going to grow up thinking that food comes from some place you dial up and they deliver it to you. Or some restaurant where you go and you buy it and they deliver it to your table. Food comes from people who bake it and cook it. And teaching children to make food is one of the great things you can do. If you have children who don't know how to cook, you have failed as a parent. You need to teach them how to cook. And if they don't know how to cook, here's how you begin. You ask them, what's your favorite food? And then you say, would you like to learn how to cook your favorite food? And then they learn with you. You make it together. Now, if you don't know how to cook, in Yiddish, you're auf tzalachas. You've got a problem. But give me a call. I'll help you out. I'll advise you. And if you follow recipes, even if you mess up a few recipes, you'll eventually learn how to do it. Let me talk about animals as a gift, all right? And I'll conclude with that. A lot of kids put a lot of pressure on their parents to get a dog or to get a cat, or most children don't ask for a cat. Cats just kind of show up. But, I mean, there's always a cat around. But dogs, you kind of have to, you have to actually, not stuffed dogs, Weissman family, not stuffed dogs, actual dogs. That's an actual dog. That's an actual dog. And so, especially during the holidays, a lot of kids put a lot of pressure on their parents to get them a dog. Now, I think it is a wonderful thing to have a dog. It teaches you how to care for an animal who needs you to care for it, who would die if you didn't care for that animal. So it teaches you how to care. And so it's a very important skill to have. And having a dog is about the only way you can get it. However, there's a problem. A lot of times, that's a dog. That's a dog. I love that dog. Oh, man. That is a... Beth, get Beth. I want to see your dog, Beth. That's it. That's a beauty. Anyway, so there's a problem with dogs. The problem is that if you get a dog and a person in the house, no one in the house after you get the dog is really going to take care of it, and it all falls on the mom and the dad to take care of the dog, that's unfair. You know, a kid says, oh, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. I promise. I promise. They get the dog, and then the kid disappears and doesn't walk the dog, doesn't clean up the poop, doesn't feed the dog. That's wrong. So I have a solution to this, which is also a mitzvah. Betty and I raised many guide dog puppies for the blind. We worked with the Guide Dog Foundation in Smithtown, which is the place I encourage you to go. And these places, like the Guide Dog Foundation in Smithtown, they train guide dogs for blind people. And if there's kids here who may not have ever seen this, the guide dogs walk along the street and they're amazing. They know red lights, they stop, and the blind person is hanging on to a collar that's connected to the dog, and the dog leads them around. The problem with guide dogs is that it takes a long time to train them. It's very difficult. And for the first year and a half of their life, when they're just puppies, they can't be trained at all, because you can't train a puppy. It's like the Silverman dog. That dog has never been trained. It's chewing on something, I don't know what it's chewing on. It's chewing on a stuffed dog. So that's a violent act, by the way. Oh, he's chewing on a dreidel. But for the first year and a half, puppies can't be trained. So they give puppies to people like Mark and Betty Gellman, who raise them in their home for about a year and a half. And after a year and a half, you give the puppy back to the guide dog people, and they train it for the next year or so. And then they pair it up with a blind person. And the great thing about being a puppy walker is if you have kids who are draining your cup about getting a dog, you can say, okay, we're going to try this out. But if you get a dog, you can't try it out. It's yours forever. And you're stuck with the dog. But if you're a puppy walker, you get the dog for only a year, a little more than a year. Then you give the dog back, and you have done a mitzvah for a blind person. And at the end of the year, you know if you're good with dogs. You know if your kids are good with dogs. You know if they're responsible with dogs. And then you can go out and buy a dog or rescue a dog from a rescue shelter. Or, as happened with us, some of our guide dogs that we trained for the Guide Dog Foundation of Smithtown, they failed as guide dogs. One of our dogs, Topper, was a cat chaser, which is a very bad thing if you're a guide dog. You can't be hanging on, a blind person can't be hanging on to a dog who's running across the street chasing a cat. That's a very bad idea. So Topper failed. And about 25 to 35% of their dogs failed. Some of the dogs that fail get to do other things like emotional assistance dogs or narcotics dogs or other dogs, but Topper failed, and if they fail, they offer you the dog back as a pet for the rest of your life, its life. So Topper became a pet, our pet for the rest of his life. So you might even get the dog back that you trained. People say, Rabbi, that's a wonderful idea and very noble, but I don't know if I could give the dog back after loving it for a year. Well, there's lots of ways. First of all, it's a mitzvah, and you're doing a mitzvah. I told you that. But secondly, the day you give back the dog, you could get a new puppy and be a puppy walker for that puppy for the next year. So that sort of blunts the tears that come when you give the dog back. And those are just some of my ideas for spiritually acceptable Hanukkah gifts. If you have anything to say or ask, I am happy to listen and say what I think is what needs to be said. But first of all, a happy Hanukkah to everybody, and God bless you. It's great to see you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. Really wonderful. I loved what you had to say. You know what another element is? Writing thank you notes. I don't think people do that anymore the way
Very good point.
they used to.
You know, that, if I could say, that actually adds another gift to my list of spiritually acceptable gifts, and that is a very good pen and personalized stationery. You should give your children a beautiful pen, a fountain pen, and stationery with their name on it, so that they can write thank you notes with their own stationery and their own pen. And they can get the idea that an email thank you to grandpa and grandma for their present is, let me just say this, it's just not good enough. It's okay, it's not bad. It's a thank you, but it's not a good enough thank you. And calling them up and thanking them, oh my God, thank you for what you gave me. That's okay too, that's good too. But it should be followed up, as Rabbi Moskowitz said, with thank you notes, and it's important that every child has their own stationery, because there will be a day, it's coming soon, when no one will remember what a letter is. No one will remember what a letter is. Right now, we're on the edge of no one knowing what a record is. There's a whole bunch of kids who have no idea what a record is. And they've never seen a turntable. So it's very important to keep up the skill of personal correspondence. It requires penmanship. It requires proper use of spelling and grammar. There's a lot of skills that go into a thank you note. And, a thank you note is also hard to compose because after you say thank you, you can't just put in thank you. So yes, I completely support Rabbi Moskowitz's idea.
Anybody else have a response, comment, question for Rabbi? I'm gonna say you gave us so much to think about, and I stole your idea with the 7th graders when we were talking the other day and said, and what presents are you getting your parents? And we had an interesting conversation, and hopefully I inspired them to at least give it some thought. So this has been wonderful. It's so good to see you during Hanukkah.
Yes.
It's great to see everybody and been fun to light the candles. 2 more nights to go at 6:45. And tomorrow night, there's a youth group event that needs a separate registration. And the last night is a Kahoot, which will be a online game. So we hope to see everybody back. And then Friday night is regular Shabbat. So we're keeping busy. We hope all's well down in Florida, Rabbi.
Yep, everything's good.
And why don't we, if people want to